Ladies and gentlemen, good evening once again. As President Trump keeps his neurotic tirade on against India, his tariffs have triggered a 100% Desi storm, one that is pitting two Indian states against each other. The Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, currently on a trip to Europe to look out for investments, has trained his guns directly at Prime Minister Modi for India buying cheap Russian oil and attracting the 50% tariffs. Chief Minister Stalin says, and I'm quoting him now, "How is it fair that for the sake of providing cheap Russian crude oil to oil refineries in Gujarat, you allow our exporters, who create thousands of job opportunities, to languish?" This is what the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu is saying. Taking a cue from the Chief Minister, another DMK leader escalated the attack by parroting Navarro's Brahmins benefiting at the cost of India's people. A. Raja, a DMK MP, said, and I quote, "The United States of America is asking why should Modi conduct a war in Ukraine and why should Brahmins exploit this soil? Nothing is happening in India except two people are selling India while two are buying India." He goes on to say rather provocatively, the 50% tariff is an extension of it. He goes on to say, Donald Trump didn't impose 50% tariff, Modi asked for it.
They say this is a geopolitical strategy because it wants to reach the pockets of Mr. Ambani. Why is Modi not answering this? This is a very, very sensitive issue and the common man is affected. He chose to line the pockets of Mr. Ambani. That is the reason everybody is opposing it. It is national interest.
So we have purchased it in a very lesser price. What is Mr. Stalin trying to say? For silly politics, he is trying to blame the government and the Prime Minister. He is accusing that Gujaratis have taken this. All our Indian owned companies.
Just because you need a political narrative, you don't apply your brain and you talk whatever that is given to you in the form of a cheat is the usual practice of M.K. Stalin. Neither he thinks nor he questions. It clearly indicates what are all the priorities of this government. Their priority is nation last.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, Tamil Nadu's angst against tariffs are justified, given that 31% of Tamil Nadu's exports go to the United States of America. In fact, one city in the state, Tiruppur, which saw major protests yesterday, accounts for 60% of India's knitwear exports, which are valued at about 45,000 crore rupees. What does a 50% tariff mean for them? It means 12,000 crore rupees in losses and job losses for the 9 lakh plus strong workforce there. In a scenario like that, ladies and gentlemen, any chief minister would be worried. That is justified. But here's the thing. Stalin is not the only chief minister who should be worried or is worried in India today. Noida, which is in Uttar Pradesh, and Surat, which is in Gujarat, are the other textile hubs in this country, and they too are facing major losses. So to portray this as a Tamil problem only instead of a national problem is honestly problematic. Also, when Tamil Nadu loses, India loses, because the state makes up for 27% of India's total textile exports. Is it then fair to blame the problem on Modi's crony capitalism? Yes, Reliance is the biggest buyer of cheap Russian oil. There is no doubt about it. But Indian oil marketing companies too buy this cheap oil, the very oil that gets sold across India, including in Tamil Nadu. Has Mr. Stalin forgotten that 50% tariffs have been imposed on 100% of India and that this is a national problem, not a regional problem? Is he playing parochial politics over national interest when he asks the Prime Minister of India to negotiate with Donald Trump? Are the interests of Tamil textile workers over Indian farmers who India right now is trying to protect? These are some questions I have for my guests this evening who are joining us. Gopal Krishna Agarwal is national spokesperson of the BJP, joining us on the broadcast. Rajat Sethi is an author. He's an economist. Thank you very much. Kishore Subramaniam is a financial expert, joining us on the broadcast as well. Salem Dharanidharan, national spokesperson of the BJP. I'm being told he'll join us. We'll wait and watch. Sanjay Jha, author, joining us on the broadcast. Sanjay, I think I'm going to start with you.
Sure.
Look, there is a problem. When 50% tariffs kick in, there is a problem. But the problem is not just for Tiruppur, Sanjay. The problem is for Noida as well. The problem is for Surat as well. The problem is a national problem. Why portray it simply as a Tamil problem? Why then go to the extent of saying, as Mr. A. Raja has, that Trump didn't impose these tariffs? Actually, Modi asked for these tariffs.
Shreya, good evening, and to my fellow panelists as well. I think when Mr. Stalin is talking about how, whether it's garments, leather, gems and jewelry, we all know the sectors that are being affected adversely, add chemicals, furniture, etc., you find that several pockets where there is a concentration of export units, the suffering is going to be humongous. I don't think he's talking about it from a very parochial or a provincial standpoint. As a chief minister, he has to fight for his state. But there is no denying that there are a couple of statements that the Americans have made. And I think in India, we can't ignore it much as the BJP would like us to. The conversation has been that India is being called the laundromat of Kremlin oil. We are being accused of oil laundering. And the statement is not about just buying cheap Russian oil. What needs to be talked about is who gained, who is the beneficiary if India actually got cheap Russian oil. Did the consumer gain or did somebody else gain? And Shreya, that to me is the fundamental point of our conversation today. I'll give you just one example and then let the others come in. There is no, let the government tell us that, because the acquisition that the Americans have made, they have even put a figure of 784 million that has been made by the refineries in India. And there are two of them which are the biggest importers. One is the Reliance's own company. The second is Naira, which is got, by the way, a predominant Russian ownership.
Correct.
So here is the question that we need to ask ourselves. If Donald Trump is using that 25% tariff as a sanction against us and is going to bleed Indian exports to the tune of around $30 to $35 billion is the expected magnitude of impact, and we cannot ignore that America is 20% of India's export market, then there are concerns. There are serious concerns. You can't ignore it. People are going to lose jobs in millions.
People are going to lose jobs. I agree with you there. And I'll let Rajat Sethi come in and rebut and probably counter your argument as well. But Sanjay, you know and I know that the 25% sanctions that have been put by the Americans is not just over Russian oil. They want to send their soya bean to us. They want to sell their dairy products to us. They want to sell their maize to us. If that happens, if India allows that, who is the biggest loser? The Indian farmer. So is there a choice being made? That you are protecting the Indian farmer, and yes, in turn, there are industries that are getting impacted. My point is, it is not just Russian oil which has attracted this 25% additional tariff. It is also the fact that India is not giving in to the American demands.
I don't share. Let me make a quick point here. Today, you have a situation where Pakistan has a 19% tariff. All those countries in the Southeast Asian regions with whom we compete mostly in a lot of these areas and exports are having lower tariffs of around 20%. Why is India, after all this upki baat, Trump Sarkar, Howdy Modi, getting such a raw deal? And the answer to that question has to be in two parts. Number one, Mr. Piyush Goyal talked about, months of negotiation. What has he got? I mean, the truth is, yes, Americans want to try and get into our farm products area. Yes, you can say no to that. But end of the day, where is your negotiation taking India forward? You're subjecting a large section of India's labor-intensive export markets vulnerable, and the employees will be out of job in a country which is suffering from a demographic dividend disaster.
Agreed, but that is not just for Tamil Nadu. That's for the entire country. But who is it that you will sacrifice in return?
But Tamil Nadu
Mr. Stalin wants Mr. Modi to negotiate with Mr. Trump. Who will be sacrificed in the process if we open up our markets for agricultural products from America? Our farmers. Anyhow, I'll let Rajat Sethi respond. He's the economist here, not me. Rajat, go ahead, please.
Well, thank you, Shreya. It just appeared that Sanjay ji is reading a handout from the US. I would therefore refrain from, repeating those things which I largely disagree with. First things, India, when oil becomes cheaper, it remains cheaper for every single citizen. And all the factories who tend to, use this as an input cost, everybody benefits all along the supply chain if it is cheap oil. India ensured that the pressures on the supply chain on oil does not reach to a level where it starts hitting common people, because it will be the same opposition party which would be on the streets every time, petrol starts hitting and tending towards 100 rupees and above. So it is sheer politics. Let's be clear about it. There should ideally be no parochialism or a state regional sentiment drawn into an international crisis. I believe that by that logic, tomorrow, Tamil Nadu's chief minister will get up and say that, see, Kashmir is a North India problem. Why should South India suffer? These kind of bizarre arguments tends to divide our country into regions, which is unfair, unfortunate. Again, I'm saying this remained a crisis. Again, not because of Russian oil. The incentives, the motives behind Donald Trump's position on this were ulterior motives. It was motives around him claiming certain credits for the Indo-Pakistan war. And what happened, New York Times has been reporting it ad nauseum on it. Okay. I believe it has very less to do with oil, very less to do with economy, very less to do with hurting India directly. It is more about him trying to latch on to credit which he has been deprived of.
Salim Dharanidharan, then why is Tamil Nadu's chief minister playing the victim here? There are solutions being sought. You know this and I know this. Till the end of this year, December 2025, the government has said there will be no duties on cotton that is imported from abroad because we don't want to pressurize textile importers anymore. That is not just for North India, that is for South India as well, that is for Tamil Nadu as well. The government of India has also planned an outreach to 40 countries to see if they can sell our products, our textile products to these 40 countries. They already sell to them, if they can sell more to them. Now that effort is not just being made for North India or East India or West India, it is also being made for South India. Tamil Nadu is part of it. Then why play this victim card? Why say that for the sake of 2 families, 3 families, 1 rich businessman, all laborers in Tiruppur and in Tamil Nadu are being sacrificed?
Okay, let me speak. The whole point is that, right, we are missing the major point here. Is my chief minister not trying to split or regionalize the country? It is the media channels that are doing it, like we can see it right now. Why is that only India is having a very high tariff? That's the point I want to ask. Why is Vietnam having only 15% tariff? Why is South Korea having only 15% tariff? Why is Japan having only 15% tariff? Why is Pakistan having only 19% tariff? Why are all South Asian countries having a tariff less than 20%? Even China, which exports very high Russian oil, right, has only 25% tariff. So the problem here is Prime Minister's foreign policy has majorly failed. Because it has majorly failed and because he has personal enmity with Trump, if we don't know what, which is why India has the highest tariff in the world. Tell me which country apart from Brazil has tariff of 50%? No other country, not China. And companies or countries that are exporting to the US and the countries with the US having a large balance of payment, right? Even those countries are having tariff less than 20%.
Mr. Dharanidharan, it is okay for the chief minister to ask that question. He's absolutely justified in asking this question. But look at what else he's saying. I've quoted him on the show before you joined us. He's saying that is it fair that few refineries in Gujarat should be benefiting from this cheap Russian oil while it is textile laborers and the textile industry in Tamil Nadu that pays the price for it? Of course, he's making this about parochial politics. Of course, he's making this about Gujarat versus Tamil Nadu. I'm not the one making this up. He said it in his own tweet.
No, that's also a pertinent point, simply because if you are getting Russian oil for cheap, then the benefit has to be passed on to the customers. What was the oil price before 2014? What is the oil price now? How much has the oil price reduced in the last 5 years? Though the barrel prices has constantly been low, this 11 years of NDA has had the luck of having much lower barrel prices in comparison to the UPA. And also in specific, because of the Russian oil, we getting it for cheap and ruble being cheap, so the oil we are getting is cheap. But why is the benefit not being transferred?
Okay.
That leads to the question that the refineries are benefiting. That is a major point to note here.
Okay.
Earlier, from 2004 to 14, that was not possible because the price was fixed and the government used to subsidize. Now you have removed the subsidies on oil. You are saying it is going to reflect the international market. Is it truly reflecting international market? No. Now price is indirectly determined by the refineries, which is helping the corporates. Which is another point that we have to note.
Mr. Dharanidharan,
Can I make one point quickly?
Of what Chief Minister, look, as I said, he has every right to be worried about what is happening in Tiruppur, right? There are 9 lakh people there who could lose their jobs because of these 50% tariffs. There could be a 12,000 crore rupee loss. I understand the worry. I understand the angst. What I don't understand is this targeting of the Prime Minister. I'm not a spokesperson of the BJP. I never intend being one. But my simple question to you is this. The entire crux of the DMK argument, whether it is from Mr. Stalin or whether it is from Mr. A. Raja, seems to be that Mr. Modi was open to these 50% tariffs or 25% additional sanctions from the Americans just so that one family could benefit. And one Gujarat oil refinery could benefit. Who will believe that, Mr. Dharanidharan?
But that's on hard data, Shreya. 50% of the...
No, I agree. I agree. 45% of the Russian oil, that cheap Russian oil that has been bought by Reliance refineries. But that is also an Indian company.
And you're talking about almost...
And we should listen to Trump and decide who Indian companies will be buying oil from. Anyhow, let Mr. Kishore Subramania come in and, make his point. Go ahead. Mr. Dharanidharan, I'll come back to you. Let Kishore make his point. And then Gopal Agarwal.
Good evening, Shreya, and good evening to all my panelists. On a lighter vein, the irony is that today DMK is opposing to India buying oil from Stalin's Russia. Okay, today Stalin is opposing, it is Stalin's Russia.
Mr. Dharanidharan, that is just a joke.
Okay, that's just a joke.
That's just a joke. That's just a joke. Chaliye.
Brother, I have huge regards for him. Okay, having said that, let's be very clear on 2 points, okay? Sanjay Jha, your hard data that you're talking about is as hard as Congress's ability to capture votes. So let me bust the myth. First point is that because the oil is coming from Russia, Reliance's GRM is not going up. So if you understand economics, the gross revenue margins on the refining is not going up. It is India's reserve that's going up. Point number 2, when any opposition party is asking the question that why is it not being passed on to the common people, let's understand that when in 2014 Congress was there, India's foreign exchange reserve was $280 billion. Today we are at 700. Nobody is saying that we have increased the forex reserves by so much. And this has happened because you've been keeping the prices at constant and not increasing it too much. Having said that, I will definitely agree to Mr. Dharanidharan on one point that BJP was lucky to have low crude oil prices. It could have passed. But remember, if you have to build a nation with good foreign exchange reserve, you will have to have a policy which is future thinking and not the way Congress thinks and the way it brought India to fragile fight. Having said that, Mr. Stalin, the Honorable Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, has every right to be concerned, and rightly so. I think that's the right noise because 9 lakh employees in Tiruppur, it matters a lot. But what Mr. Trump does, I don't think so even his spouse knows. So let's forget about Indians knowing it. Forget about that. Having said that, why is South Asian countries, other Asian countries, our neighbors having lesser? Because these are geopolitical situations. Understand that India is today closer to China, and that's a political compulsion. We have built that relationship with America for over 25 years. But Trump has his personal interest of his crypto being invested in.
Okay.
You can't control that.
Okay. I believe Sanjay Jha wanted to come in. We really live in a topsy-turvy world, Sanjay, when the Chinese come off looking as the good guys. But anyhow, a quick response before I go to Gopalji.
Shreya, the gentleman who spoke before me was extremely disingenuous with facts. So let me put it on the record here on your show. There is something called as mark-to-market pricing on oil. The consumer must benefit. And I will tell everyone watching your program, the price of oil that you paid when the imports started from Russia till today, if the Russian oil was cheaper, you should have got the benefit that you did not. The
consumers haven't.
the consumer did not.
I agree with you there. The consumers have not got the benefit. Anyhow, let Gopal Agarwal come in. But the fact also is that, our oil marketing companies, PSUs owned by the government of India, etc., have made some profits. Now, wo Indian hi profit hai. Anyway, go ahead, Mr. Agarwal.
You should be fair. You should give time to each panelist once. You cannot.
बोलिए गोपाल जी, बोलिए.
हाँ, देखिए important बात है. It is said that ignorance is bad and half information and ignorance is much bad. The thing is that there is a problem for the textile industry due to tariff, and government has taken several steps to support them, including coming out with a stabilization fund for the support of exporters. Cotton import has been allowed to lower the cost of raw material, one thing. Second is, the important thing is more than 75% of the oil, etc., are being refined and processed and sold by the public sector undertaking. And the third important point is, the basic information we should understand is that the oil, if India had not bought the Russian oil, even European countries had asked that if India doesn't buy Russian oil and Russian oil doesn't come to the global oil market, the price of crude oil globally will increase to $120. That would have cost to every global level. And China, which was importing almost 40% of its oil, Russian oil, it will increase.
Gopalji, but the counter to that argument is simply this. China is the biggest consumer of Russian oil and Russian energy and Russian gas.
नहीं श्रेया जी, ऐसे नहीं होता. आधी घंटे का डिस्कशन किया, आप बात पूरी नहीं करने देंगे.
अरे तो मैं तो आपसे काउंटर सवाल पूछ रही हूँ ना.
काउंटर सवाल अभी मेरी बात तो होने दे, तभी तो काउंटर करेंगे. अभी आपने पिछले साल 33,000 करोड़ का डोमेस्टिक ऑयल परचेज के कारण, रशियन ऑयल परचेज के कारण इंडिया को प्रॉफिट हुआ. अदरवाइज द ग्लोबल ऑयल प्राइसेस वुड हैव गॉन टू मोर देन $100 per barrel. Or China would have further benefited by increasing its import from Russia, which was pegged at $60.
Okay.
So ये आप इकोनॉमिक्स समझेंगे या नहीं? और केवल इसलिए कि केवल नॉट आपको एक स्टेट के खिलाफ अपनी पॉलिटिक्स करनी है, इसलिए इस तरह की बेकार की बेहूदी बातें करेंगे.
Salim Dharanidharan, the charge against you from the BJP is simply this, in case you didn't understand, because Mr. Agarwal was speaking in Hindi, simply is this. This is parochial politics, nothing else. If Tamil Nadu loses, India loses. And if India loses, Tamil Nadu loses. And Chief Minister Stalin has to recognize that. That you just cannot cry over Tiruppur when the entire textile industry across this country is suffering. And we can't give in to Trump. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I'm speaking, no. Firstly, you have to understand my Chief Minister and as well as a spokesperson, including myself, time and again said, only if the individual states of India would grow, so will the country grow. So, as the Chief Minister for Tamil Nadu, he, on the basis of the representation made by the factory owners and workers in Tiruppur, he has to make representation on the behalf. But there is only one important point to make. That is, why is the tariff for India alone highest, not for other similar countries? Point number one. I will go further. America's GDP, in comparison to the overall global GDP, is 27%. For example, American GDP is higher than the GDP of the remaining 20 countries excluding China. So that is, you're losing a very big market.
Okay.
And now your BJP is coming and saying, oh, we have made free trade agreement with UK. UK's GDP is $3 trillion. American is nearly $20 trillion. Right?
Mr. Dharanidharan, you can give me all sorts of data right now, but you still haven't answered the crux of my question about blaming Prime Minister Modi and the Indian government of inviting these tariffs just to benefit one refinery in Gujarat or two refineries in Gujarat. You still haven't answered that question, because that was the crux of the allegation that Mr. Stalin has made and that Mr. A. Raja has also made. And many of your spokespersons have also made that. My point is, no one will believe that.
Making a wrong picture to say that Modi has taken so big tariffs to safeguard the country. No. Something somewhere really screwed up big time in foreign policy, and that's why we have very high tariff, and that is what we have to focus on. The Russian oil. The benefits have not been passed to the consumers. That is the interesting point.
I think we've heard from all sides. I know, Sanjay, you want to make a point, Gopalji as well, but I'm completely out of time, so I'll have to end the discussion here. I'm sure we can continue with this discussion tomorrow if the story develops. Salim Tharanidharan, thank you for your time. Sanjay Jha, good to have you on the show. Gopalji, naraz mat hoiye. If tomorrow we do the show, I'll come first to you. You don't worry about it. Kishore Subramaniam ko I'll go last. Thank you, Kishore Subramaniam, for joining us as well. Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, I'm stepping into a break. There's more on the other side.